All right. So, 4.2. I talked earlier, I can't remember what chapter it was. I think it was chapter 1. We talked about profit functions and how that was going to show up next year in financial algebra should you take that class. Well, this will definitely show up in your financial algebra class next year should you take it. All right? This is all about compound interest. Okay? So you have $780 invested in an account earning 2% interest. Okay? APR, well, I should probably tell you right now. APR stands for annual percentage rate. Okay? And it's compounded monthly. That's important. They want us to write a function showing the value of the account after T years, where the annual growth rate can be found from a constant in the function. Round all coefficients in the function to 4 decimal places. And then also determine the percentage of growth per year to the nearest hundredth of a percent. Okay. First things first. Okay, first things first. Here's the function that we're going to use. Okay? So it's f of t equals p. P is the principal. That's just starting amount. Okay? R is the interest rate as a decimal. Okay? N is the number of times compounded. And T is the time in years. Well, we don't know T. We're never going to know T, so we don't have to worry about that. So let's just plug in what we know. So f of t equals, P is the principal. We started with $780 times 1 plus. Okay, R goes on top. So the interest rate was 2%, but we have to write that as a decimal. So that's 0.02% over N, which is the number of times compounded. Now it's compounded monthly. Okay? Monthly means how many times in 1 year? Well, monthly, there's 12 months in a year. So 12 is N. To the NT power. Well, N is 12, so it's to the 12T power. Okay? Let's simplify a little. So 780. Now, let's see. 0.02 divided by 12. Oh boy. Okay. So that's 0.00166666. But remember, okay, it says round to the nearest 4 decimal places. So what this really is, it's going to be 1 plus that. So 1.0017 to the 12t. So all I did was I simplified what was in the parentheses. Okay? Now, our next step. All right? Our function just has to have a t. So how do I get the 12 out of that exponent? Well, remember, Chapter 3, we talked about power to a power you multiply, right? So this is 12 times t. Well, what I can do is I can split up 12 and t. And I can do that simply by putting the 12 back in the parentheses. Okay? So I just took 12 and t and I split them apart. Well, now what I can do is I can figure out what 1.0017 is to the 12th power. So I get 1.02059. Now there's more numbers than that, but here's the thing. Remember, 4 decimal places. So what does 9 do to 5? Well, it rounds it up. So it's 1.0206. to the t power. Okay? So, this is our function. Okay? That's the function. That's the first thing they wanted. Now they want to know the percent of growth per year. Well, here's a little trick of the trade. Okay? For these problems, compound interest, it's always going to be growth. Okay? So the growth rate is just what's the decimal. Forget the 1. Okay? So the growth rate is 0.0206, just whatever came after the 1. Well, the percent, you move it 2 to the right, so 2.0% or 2.06% growth. Okay? So it's not that bad. It's just kind of plugging in numbers and then you kind of manipulate a little bit. It's not that bad. Okay. So, same situation. Okay. So 690 is P. 2.2 is R. Compounded quarterly, that's different. Okay. So let's see. P is 690. R. Now remember, 2.2% has to be a decimal. So it should be 0.022. Okay, if you take the 2 and move it twice, 0.022. N. Now N, quarterly. So how many quarters are in a dollar? How many quarters are in a game? 4. So compounded quarterly means N equals 4. All right? So now I can write my function. So f of t equals 690 times 1 plus 0.022 divided by 4 to the 4t power. So in my calculator, I'm going to do 1 plus 0.022 divided by 4. Okay, that worked out well. So 690, I didn't have to round, actually, because I got 4 decimal places right on the spot. Or right on the dot, I should say. Okay, to the 4t. Now, we got to pull this apart. So I've got 690 times 1.055 to the 4th. Now the 4 is inside the parentheses. So that to the 4th power. So 690, 1.02218 to the t. Now remember, the 4th number is, well, it says 4 decimal points, or 4 decimal places, but thousandths. Okay? So what is 8 do to 1? Rounds it up. So our function is 690 times 1.0222 to the t power. Okay. Now our growth rate is 0.0222. Well, move it 2 to the right, and my growth percentage was 2.22%. Okay? All right. Next problem. Now, these are all going to be the only thing that's really changing is right here. The compounded. It's compounded daily. Well, so our principal is 470. Our interest rate is 0.024. Now, compounded daily. So that means every day it's getting compounded. Well, we're talking about in 1 year. Okay? Well, how many days are in a year? 365. Okay? So, f of t equals 470 times 1 plus 0.024 over 365 to the 365t power. All right, so in our calculator, 1 plus 0.024 divided by 365. Oh my. That's crazy. All right, well, so it's 470 times 1 point. Now we have to round this. So it's 1.00006 to the 365t. Well, here's my fourth decimal place, so 6 bumps that up to 1. Oh my goodness. So I have 1.0001 to the 365t power. This will be interesting. Okay, rip that apart. So 470 times 1.001 to the 365 power to the t. This should be interesting. 1.0001 to the 365 power. Okay, so I get 470 times 1.03717 to the t. So what does 7 do? Bumps that up to 2. So 470 times 1.037, the 1 goes up to 2 to the t power. So there's our function. Okay, so our growth rate, sorry for the length of the video, guys, is 0.0372. Move your decimal 2 to the right. So our growth rate was 3.72%. Okay. Now the last one, okay, the last one is a little bit different, okay? Because now we are compounded continuously, okay? We're compounded continuously. So what's going to happen is this is going to be our function now. So notice how this is E. I call it the PERT formula because it spells out PERT. PERT is a type of shampoo. I don't know if you've ever heard it before. It was popular in the 80s. Well, PR and T all stand for the same thing, so that's fine. E is a number. E is approximately 2.71828, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to get into how they found it. You just need to know that E is a number, okay? E is a number. So our principal is 970. Our interest rate, 3%. So that would be 0.03. And then T. Okay? So, anytime it says compounded continuously, you're going to use that formula. So, F of T equals 970 E to the 0.03, to the 0.03 T power. Now, remember how we had to rip this apart? We got to do that again. So this is 970 times E to the 0.03 power to the T. So E to the 0.03 power. Okay? So this is 970 times 1.03045 to the T power. Well, 5 rounds 4 up to 5. So 970 times 1.0305 to the T power. There's my function. My growth rate, okay, is 0.0305, 2 to the right, so it's 3.05%. Okay, the reason why I did 4 examples is because I wanted to show you the different compounding periods, okay, so that you can see what n is.